Hello and welcome to Friday, Manx.news and Energy FM's weekly peruse around the Manx news landscape. So I'm Turton from the Onken Bureau, and joining us this week from the Northern Plains is the Angel of the North herself, who for some reason this week reminds me of Princess Anne on the Crown, Charlie Murray.
Hello, Sambo. I like that you think that I look like Princess Anne on the Crown. That's a very big compliment. But I'm also enjoying the view of Onken today from
Yeah, well,
behind you.
yeah, we don't like to brag about this view in Onken. We don't want people coming to see it because they ruin it. They bring their food, they bring their children, and they just ruin everything.
We want the people out of Onken. We don't want to be building these numbers. We want to be slashing them.
Exactly. This is actually the bridge which crosses Gradle Gorge. Nobody really knows about it, but it's there.
I love it. Okay, so Sam, has it been a week from hell or has it been an okay week?
Um, I mean, it's been a bit of a weird week.
Mm.
Um, had better, had worse.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. What's been the biggest spark of interest in your week? I could take a guess, but I'm going to let you open it with the biggest story of the week, in your opinion.
Oh, go on now. Let's see what your guess is, and we'll see if you're right.
I think the story of the week, I'm going to go over to sport,
Yeah,
and I would say it's to do with FC Isle of Man.
it is. I was going to hold up a little card, but I didn't write on it in time, so it's blank. But that was the story. Yeah. Yeah, FC Man this week. Paul Jones has left as manager after I think it's just over 2.5 years in the role, maybe 3 years, approaching 3 years anyway. After replacing Chris Bass Senior back in November 2022, Paul left this week and has been replaced by ex-Man City and Oldham Athletic player Rick Holden, who is also well known on the local game, played for Peel. He's coached the Islands national team at one point. He's been involved with Air and Peel behind the scenes the past few years, and yeah, it's all change at the Ravens.
And is that exciting for football fans? What's the feeling being amongst the football hooligans of the Isle of Man?
I think, I mean, it's funny enough, I was chatting to somebody at the away game last Saturday, and we were saying, and he goes, Jimmy, you must have the most middle class fans in this league. I was like, what do you mean? And somebody asked me where the Prosecco is. I was like, yeah, yeah. Um,
We're from a tax haven, darling.
well,
We're,
fully
we're
enough,
not like the rest of you.
one of the songs that the fans brought back at the weekend, which I haven't heard for a little while, is "We've got three legs, we don't pay tax, we cut the tails off. There's a word I can't say here. Our cats." And I was like, it's good to hear that one back again. So yeah, yeah, it's been. I think there was a lot of um, it hasn't been a good year. I think we have to be honest. Going back, I mean, this is where my dual role comes in of also doing media for FCR Band. So it's like, as the press statement, I thought was very well written. But I think, if you go back to the start of the year, it's 4 games, 4 league games, and 1 friendly win since then. That's obviously a difficult year for everyone involved. And so there's been quite a lot of negativity around some of those results and performances. A lot from people, by the way, who weren't at, especially away games. But I think this year, the change probably felt like it was coming, unfortunately, for a little while. And now that change has happened, and Rick's come in on what is a caretaker basis. So I think he went down met the lads last night. But the response on social media has been um, largely very respectful towards Paul and his family for all the time they've put in and all the time they've given, and the same for all his coaches. And people have been very welcome to see Rick come in. He's obviously quite a people in the Isle know him. He's quite a well-respected voice around football. Anyone who's ever read any of his books will know that, which he's written quite extensively about his career and also about um, football on the Isle of Man, which uh, it's if you ever get an opportunity to read one of these books, they are well worth a read. There's a fantastic one of Worms and Spaceships, My Time in Manx Football, which is absolutely just it's a bizarre read but really, really fascinating because it really does get into the nitty-gritty of Manx football, which is really interesting. So yeah, I think there's a lot of positivity around the appointment. A lot of people are also sad to see Paul go because they can see what he's trying to do just hasn't worked as anybody would have hoped it worked. I think there's unique challenges to this team, which in terms of player availability, and we played away the other week with I think it was without being impolite, not the first choice goalkeeper, and nine defenders missing. You know, other teams normally don't have that situation, so it's been a difficult year for various reasons. We also had some quite big names step away, like Sean Doyle. Went back to play locally. Dan Simpson's been playing locally. Obviously, Luke Murray is unable to play. So it's been a difficult year, but I think hopefully there'll be hopefully a lot of positivity around it, and hopefully results will come back around and get more people down the bowl because they are, you get a good Saturday night down at the bowl, especially the dark nights are coming in now. You get a real good atmosphere down there. So hopefully, yeah, it'll be taken in well in person as it has been online.
My goodness. Yeah, I did actually read a few of the comments. I thought you'd be impressed by that I showed a slight interest in football and thought I would go and have a little look through what's been said. But as I've said to you before, I don't really understand. Like, I don't really get what I suppose the role of the manager is, which may sound really stupid. Is he manager or coach? What is he?
Well, we,
Or
we
was
use the
he
term
the new
manager.
guy?
I mean, manager and head coach have become a bit more interchangeable these days. Some clubs say head coach because it's like, they've got directors of football and other stuff who run the club, whereas the manager, the head coach, does the team. I think at FC that was largely true, but Paul also had quite a large role across other areas of the club. So it's interchangeable. In fact, if you want to know more about that, I'd recommend this book here, which is Football Cliches by Adam Hurrey, who goes into the art of the football language, Charlie. So I might give you that actually to have a read.
Oh,
You can
that'd be
learn
so
many, many
kind.
things. For example, you could have this goes into everything from the type of goals that can be scored to navigating the modern football pitch to the anatomy of a footballer. So I
Wow.
mean, I think you'll think it's all very basic, Charlie, but you'd be amazed about the differences of how sort of different body language can build. We have things like the imaginary card, the virtual ball. It's all in there, Charlie. Have a read and educate yourself.
Do you not want to slot me in as their manager for a bit? Do you know what I would tell them all to do?
Score more goals and stop conceding some.
Yeah, I'd say stop being shit and score more goals.
Yeah, I mean, I did quite like the idea of like a Mike Bassett appointment for a little while, but
Mm.
which if you've never seen Mike Bassett, England manager, even somebody who doesn't care about football, Charlie, you'd find it hilarious. It's Ricky Tomlinson on absolute fine form. So
I just think I'd be very good, to be honest. I'd just shout at them. I probably actually I would get sacked in 2 seconds because I would start throwing things at people and I would call them everything under the sun if I thought they were playing rubbish
yeah, you take the
and be
Alex
like, out.
you take the Alex Ferguson hairdryer and literally hit them with a hairdryer.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't think twice.
Fair enough. Well,
I'd
yes,
probably be arrested by the end of the first training session, I'd be arrested
well,
for, I don't
okay.
know, grievous bodily harm or something. But they might be playing a bit better by the end of it. Okay, I feel like that's enough about football. I've let you have your moment to really cheer yourself up and get yourself in the football spirits. Do you want to move to politics?
Yeah, go on and try because you went to the government conference this week because I was elsewhere engaged with finding anything else that I could do. Um,
Well,
so how was the only thing more boring than golf to happen at a golf course?
well, I literally came home and was like, well, that's a day I'm never going to get back. It was, do you know what? Watching paint dry genuinely would have been more entertaining. Like it was painful. Did anything exciting come out of it? Not really. I was very disappointed to not see Brian Thompson on the panel discussing connectivity. Although they all say something differently. Maybe I'm actually saying it wrong. How did they say connectivity? They say connectivity or something like that. And I was just like, is it not just connectivity?
What we used to call back in the good old days travel on and off Ireland.
Yeah, like getting off the rock and getting to the rock. Um, so yeah, I was disappointed to not see Brian on the panel. What was interesting?
Hold on, so because Brian was obviously there, because I think we've covered the Steam packet more than we've covered anything else from the conference,
Hmm,
because that's certainly what we find most interesting, and what evidently by the numbers that we've had this week, our readers find very interesting as well.
hmm.
And to use a cliche, the 85,000 management committee that run the Steam packet. that. So hold on. So he was doing that, and he appeared on panel as well. But then when they got to connectivity, I take it this was the one with the airport director on.
Yeah, so basically so Brian and the new chair, Dan Clegg, did the presentation from the Steam packet.
Yeah.
And then DOI do their other airport. No, actually, it was weird. For the airport, they had the airport director and they had enterprise minister do that presentation.
Yeah, I mean, in typical government style, the DOI is in charge of the airport, the DFE is in charge of airlinks.
Yeah, need I say more? Um, and then when it comes to the Q&A, last year Brian was on the panel, and this year he wasn't. We had the chair on the panel instead,
I
which
mean, too
he
fair. I mean, I mean, yeah, it also helps
that was
introduce into the room a little bit, so I can see why that happened.
yeah, that's fine. Like I actually don't have like any like political argument against it other than from an entertainment basis. Brian brings the bands. I love watching Brian go rogue, and I didn't get to see that.
That would be
So
fantastic. Like, your SAS Rogue Heroes,
yeah.
Sea Services Agreement Rogue Heroes.
So
That's the title of
right.
this episode.
Now, what was interesting that came out of the government conference, I'm going to stick to the Steam packet for a second and then go to the DOI, was it was the first time we've heard publicly about the Manhattan replacement and what that may or may not look like. So during the presentation from Dan and Brian, we heard that they would potentially like for it to be able to deputise freight. Now, if we hear that, we're hearing that it's not going to be a fast craft. Or a
Yeah,
fast craft as we know it, I suppose would probably be the correct term. It's not going to be in similar size to Manannan. So we
yeah,
can probably expect a bigger vessel.
yeah. I think if you look at around the Irish Sea, perhaps Irish ferries or like Stena, I think they've got the capability for such things. Where they've got slightly faster than normal ferries, so you're not looking at 4 hour crossing
Mhm.
to Liverpool. I think maybe they'll go down that route of something that can also carry freight because obviously the Manhattan can carry like a limited amount of freight when it's had to, but obviously it's not built for that. And yeah, it'll be. I'm very interested by how that develops. In fact, you spoke to Brian, so why don't we drop that in and we'll have you chatting to Brian.
Brian, today at the government conference, it was announced that the replacement for Manannan will hopefully be able to deputise for freight. Now, this is the first time we've heard really, and gives a little bit of a hint of the size of the replacement boat. So, would you be able to tell us a little bit more about that, please?
I think that was just one of the considerations. So I think there's a number of sort of areas that the stakeholders want to see. Being able to deputise for freight, better passenger comfort. We want to keep some sort of speed as well because that quick journey to Liverpool is good. So I think the consultation that we're going to have with the public is an open one. There's no decisions being made, but there's sort of considerations and expertise on the board and within the company. So we all have opinions, but those will all be balanced off against the stakeholder needs. So that's just one of them.
So, currently, as it stands, are we just waiting until the consultation's completed to sort of have more of an idea of what the new boat's going to look like, or do we have a rough idea?
Yeah, so we're talking about it internally, and actually everybody has different ideas. We have people on the board who represent, the public of the Isle of Man because most of us live here. So we share that journey, that experience. We know what we want it to be like. We know which vessel we enjoy. So it is just getting that balance, and it will be, a case that actually the public will get a say in that, and we'll listen to it.
So yeah, interesting there. I mean, like you said, I think I think he recognises they're walking a tightrope with all this.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think money's going to play a big part in whatever we come up with because that has to be the most cost-effective method. Like as we said the last week, we're wanting to build tourism numbers, we're wanting to do all of this, but also, the thing needs paying for, which will be paid for by the Steam packet, not by the taxpayer. Um, but still, it has to make business sense. So that'll be interesting to see what comes of that. And what was also interesting was that we're going to have an update on the sea services agreement because
Yeah,
that's currently being renegotiated. So that'll be very interesting to see what comes of that. Personally, I would be curious to see whether we'll see a change in sailing frequency because obviously all of that is currently bound by the sea services agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one, of course, obviously, is the Manxman twice a day service to Hisham, except
Mhm.
for like weekends and that sort of stuff, which is written into it. I think there was, I may be wrong on this, but I know there was at one point where they were exceeding the number of things they have to do to Liverpool and that they have to do to Ireland. And I know Brian's spoken previously about wanting to increase that service to Ireland. So
Yeah,
it'll be interesting how that all plays out. But I mean, I'm surprised at the lack of government consultation of the sea services agreement. I think
yeah,
the Steam packet have been out this past week with past sort of just this month, sorry, with their big survey, which was like really quite in depth about, what would you like to see, what don't you like to see, why do you fly, what, why do you come on the boat, why don't you go on the boat? That was quite in depth, and I just thought, from the government point of view, surely like there's, I mentioned this earlier when we spoke to stakeholders. I hate that word, but I'm like, well, why has the government not gone out to the public a little bit on this and gone, what do you think this relationship should look like? And fair enough, you will have crackpots and lunatics who will say, "Well, the boat should be free," and because I've lived here since 1904, and I remember Ralph Cannon's grandfather, and fuck off. But I dropped the first F bomb this week. That never happens. But
did. I've been so good.
but like going out to them, going out to businesses and speaking to the government more directly about, what the relationship should be. And I think that shouldn't just include the DOI and the sea service agreement. I think that should include DFE, Treasury, DOI, speaking to, and they probably will say, oh, we are doing this, but you need to do it in a more public manner, I'm afraid. Because I just think, well, this new sea services agreement is going to be tying us in for 5 years to whatever, or, because they'll do like a long-term agreement, but like updated after 5 years sort of thing. So I'm like, well, surely there's got to be an element of let's be looking at this from a cross government and less sort of silo mentality fashion of what do we actually need the company to be for the island and for the company. And I
Yeah,
think, well,
100%.
I haven't seen that level of consultation.
But that would rely on a certain amount of communication within government departments, and that's just never going to happen. Um,
But the other thing
and I
was, like
think,
you said about Air Links as well, though, we had the airport director on who said that people's perception of the airport isn't their reality, which I'm always amazed at that statement because it's like going, it's not, people online will say the airport's bad, but it's not. I'm like, well, the people online are the people who are going through it. I went through the airport.
yeah,
I thought, well, do you know what? Fair enough, there's a big cost now, which fine, whatever. But like the seats that they've got, like they're just uncomfortable, horrible plastic things. So people go, well, that's what they have at London. I was like, all right, so we have to just go, which annoys me about this island, because the island does it all the time, which is if something's crap, we go, well, in England they do very similar, or it's even worse. Whereas if something's good, we go, oh, that's a Manx solution.
mm.
It's like, but anyway,
I feel like the airport's biggest brag was the fact that they have a new departure lounge. That was their big brag. And then we heard about the scanners that are new, but they're still not as updated as the new scanners in other airports elsewhere. So that was because you know how you go through like Dublin or some scanners in Gatwick, you don't have to take stuff out your bag.
yeah.
Everything just goes through.
I,
Yeah. So
I went through
basically,
in
we're
Rome.
not getting them.
I went through in Rome where you can carry through 2 litre bottles again.
Yeah, well, you think what it's like
Uh,
in America, actually. When you go through there, you don't have to take anything out your bag. It just goes straight through.
yeah, but they also, it's America. But no, I mean, also one of the Steam Packers' big brags, of course, this year is that they've got more passengers because fewer people are flying, which will be an interesting. I can't wait to see the comparison between those two sets of figures at the end of the year. But
Yeah.
yeah, the airport. I mean, we've got a written answer as well this week about the airport and air connectivity with Oncom HK Rob Carlster asked what conversations have been had with EasyJet about the autumn and winter schedules. Because obviously
Mm.
people will know that getting on and off the island in the autumn and the winter is not the greatest setup. There's fewer flights to different airports. We've got obviously Logan Air provide the Liverpool service for patient transfer, which secures a certain level of service there. But the DFE have revealed this week they are talking to other airlines as well as the big two here at the minute, Logan Air and EasyJet, about what else can be done to improve connectivity to
Mm.
different places. I think, it's always an awkward one because people say, oh, we need a Belfast route. And you're going, well, we've had several and they've all failed. Like, these airlines aren't pulling out of the Belfast route because it's too full. Oh, we can't get a big enough
Yeah.
plane, so let's stop running it. It's and the Dublin route. I know a lot of people use the Dublin route on the way to America, and I've done it. Really good system. And I get why people are frustrated that the only way to get to Northern Ireland is to fly into the Republic and head up. But it's going to be interesting, the air services thing, because I think just, we have to be a little bit realistic about what we've got here and how, we're not going to get a private airline is not going to be running flights at a loss because we want to try and get more tourists in from Bristol. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. I think ultimately, if you put a service on, then you have to use it because if you don't use it, you lose it, the old saying goes. And like for the Belfast routes, I used to use that route a lot of the time, actually. And more often than not, there'd be 10 people on the flight. It would always be so, so quiet. And that was to international and to city. When, do you remember Aer Lingus ran one of them
Mm.
and EasyJet ran the other? So I would often use both. And each time the flight, it was so, so quiet. So it does, you can understand why it's gone. Like, it's not rocket science. It wasn't being utilized enough, which is sort of, sadly fair enough. But I'm going to step away from the airport for just a second, but going to stay with DOI. And
Yeah.
this is still at the government conference. I felt like I was at a school assembly when the DOI minister was lecturing us all in the room how we never notice when the DOI get it right. So she said, we always get it right, but no, it only makes headlines when we get it wrong. And I was thinking, well, because you often get it wrong more often than right. So a bit of an awkward one that, but I am waiting for the audio back from that. So we can actually, maybe we'll have it by end of play and we can pop it in somewhere, but equally, who knows?
Yeah, it's a
We're
fantastic,
not,
fantastic level of transparency here this week that for people who weren't at the conference, it's been a struggle to get the audio from the government as
yeah.
what their minister actually said. It's just like, you have filmed it and recorded it. The fact that we were in a different room editing a different bit of the conference shouldn't mean that we can't get the audio. I just think it's just utterly ridiculous. But
It's classic, isn't it? So yeah, that
welcome
was
to
the
the Isle of
government.
Man.
Welcome. So that was government conference. I only went on the Tuesday. And yeah, as I say, it was very dull, a lot of bullshit, and nothing that exciting came out from it. I didn't go on the Wednesday,
Well, I was going to
but
say
have you heard?
June did go on the Wednesday, and I think he's
Mm,
got interviews with David Ashford and with Devon Watson from Douglas Council.
yes.
So let's drop a bit of them in now, and this is talking about housing, and well, actually, do you know what? A lot of it is about housing, but also just how Douglas Council is operating. So we'll drop them two in now with a bit from first off David Ashford, and then the leader of the Socialist Republic of Douglas.
Minister, there's been announced today there's going to be £50 million worth of savings over the next 5 years. Why hasn't this gone deeper and further quicker?
Well, I think it's a start. The key thing we're actually saying is this isn't the end of it. As I just said in the panel debate, this is the start. If we believe we can very quickly identify 10 million a year of recurring savings, which will be the 50 million over 5 years. After that, we then will go deeper and we will take a look because, government has a duty to ensure that taxpayers' money is actually spent wisely. Fully well from my time in Tynwald, I have banged on many times about the cost of government and ensuring that we're doing things efficiently. So this is a start. It's certainly not the be all and end all. We're not going to get to that 50 million over 5 years and then say, that's it, job done.
Now, obviously, it's no secret government is strapped for money. So how do you think they're going to fund some of these things over the next few years? And how does that integrate with local authorities and what you're doing from the social housing aspect?
Yeah, so I think that one of the problems that government faces at the moment is it views things as costs rather than as an investment. So you build a home for someone or you build a set of apartments for people, they're still going to be lived in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, hopefully 100 years from now if they're built right to correct standards. And no one is going to be complaining about that cost down the road, but we just have to have the bravery to invest. And unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a mechanism to say, how are we going to fund this? And does the crisis sort of meet the ambitions that are sort of on display?
So what do you think of the proposals that have been announced?
I think the ambitions are good, but one thing that I would like to see is more concrete, direct actions. Because, we are in the middle of a housing crisis. This was a government elected to deal with a housing crisis. And the ambitions don't seem to sort of directly line up with what has been with the scale of that crisis. When I talk to people who are homeless, when I talk to people who are leaving care, who don't have anywhere to go, I talk to prisoners who don't have anywhere to sort of way to integrate back into the community, people who want to leave social housing but can't, people who want to get into social housing but there isn't the social housing for them. And I really want to see a lot of the energy here at the government conference translated into direct, concrete, tangible, sort of key performance indicators that would actually give people hope to know that in 5 years from now, this crisis won't be the core thing affecting them.
Okay, so that's a friendship we never thought that we would see. Devon Watson and Ewan Turner, the new BFFs. That's the word on the street, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. They were spotted down at Costa later on. They're going to Noah's for a brunch on Saturday. They're going out fell running, I believe, on Sunday morning.
Oh my God, they just bring out the best in each other. It's a relationship we love to see blossom.
They could be the new Marks and Engels.
They could. Now, Sam, I know we're sort of not brilliant on time at the minute, but I feel like we have to touch on two things. One being the minimum wage, and the second, the election.
Yeah, we'll tell you what, before we do that, let's go through a quick break and then we'll come back and discuss the joys of the minimum wage.
So this week, it was announced that there's going to be a new minimum wage proposal going to Tynwald. Is it going to go in October, isn't it? And if approved, it'll come into effect in April 2026. So it sees the minimum wage rise by about 9%. It's about just over £1, isn't it? Which I have actually done an opinion piece on because I am not for this whatsoever. I think government are looking at the complete wrong element of how to help the lower paid workers. Um, I don't think we should be paying them necessarily. I don't think we should be paying more because now I know for workers they're going to say, well, we know we should be paid more. We're struggling. And look, I get that. Like I truly wholeheartedly understand that. There's many of us right now that are really, really financially struggling. We're struggling to make it to the end of the month, never mind try and think about how hell we would ever save for a house deposit or anything like that. But my argument here is that the more you're paid, the more you're taxed. And the fact that actually, I think if government really wanted to help those that are not earning as much, they should increase the thresholds, which would take the stress off the business having to pay more. It would increase how much the worker could actually earn. But the only people to suffer from that would be government. And I think they've tried to sugarcoat this minimum wage increase as no, we're looking after the working man, we're looking after the little person. No, you're not. Because if you truly were looking after the little person and truly cared about those that aren't earning as much, you'd increase their tax thresholds. But they haven't, and they're not.
My big thing about this is that businesses obviously there's going to be the living wage was meant to line up with the minimum wage by the end of this year or maybe nearly this year.
Mhm.
And the government said this doesn't work, so we have to come up with a mechanism. So they came up with a mechanism and they went, this is the mechanism that is used elsewhere, and it'll be great here, and it'll be the medium wage, and that's what it's going to be, and that's how we're going to set it. And then the first year they've done it, everyone's gone, who the fuck come up with that? And you're like, well, quite frankly, that was the one that businesses also supported. So, that was the one that got the most support about how to do this. So it's a bit of we've wandered into a hilarious problem of they need the system that was better than the system they had, and they created a system, and now everyone's gone, this is crap.
The
And
thing is, though, there's the small businesses that this will affect. We're not talking about big businesses that can afford that. We're talking about the small cafe owners and the likes of that. We're also, if you think about it, this will affect some residential homes and that kind of thing as well, because a lot of these care workers are on minimum wage. And I agree, they should be paid well. I'm not sitting here saying, let's no, fuck them, pay them fuck all. I'm not saying that for a second. I think people should be entitled to a fair wage. But those costs get passed on, and all you're doing is getting yourself into an inflation cycle. And prices will just keep going and going and going up. So actually, if you increase the minimum wage, the goods you're going to buy are going to go up. Therefore, you're still going to be in that same shithole of a position. And I take care for an example because that is already so expensive. if we put the minimum wage up, then the care gets more expensive. A lot of people already can't afford that and are already, bankrupting themselves to try and do it. And that's where I think if we actually just then increase the tax thresholds, that keeps this inflation in line a bit. But we can't just keep going like this because it's never ending. The same as I saw someone comment about, well, actually, if we just cut housing prices, and it's like, well, do you know what? It's all well and good saying that. I did an article on it in January, an opinion piece. I agree. But, we're not in the same situation we were 50 years ago. Housing materials have gone up massively. Wages have gone up massively. Everything has gone up. So the moment you go, no, cut it, okay, all the materials and everything have gone up. What are we meant to do with that?
But this is where, in part, we can go back to the thing that we talked about earlier, though, with we have a expensive body of water to cross to get here with materials
Yeah,
and goods. So let's go back to the beginning on this and say again, and I'm not pinning this on the Steam Packet, they're a business that's operating as a business. The government should be looking at that and going, hold on, what can we actually do here to set the parameters to work a bit better and to help with this? Because, you know, there's no there's no bigger cost than salaries in places, but also the materials they're working with have got to be come down on that. In terms of house prices, I mean, it's a symptom of successive failures of government to ensure that houses were being built.
yep,
Um, and I include affordable housing in that and local authority
yep,
housing.
yep.
And we also have a problem here where the sort of, it, you know, for want of a better thing of it, the best chance I know, a lot of people I know who have got, they're living in social housing or they're living on private rental and all this, and it also becomes a dark joke. Like, the best chance you got of owning a house is waiting for your grand to fall down the stairs and hope she doesn't have to go to a care home along the way.
100%. Yeah, it's 100%. And I agree with Devon actually. When Dewan spoke to him, he said, government should be really looking at housing as an investment. And I do wholeheartedly agree with them actually, because it should be. They should be there for the next, you know, 10, 20, 50, 40, if they're built really well, next 100 years or so. Um, but we haven't been doing that.
No, and I think
And
there's
also, actually, sorry, Sam.
no.
I was going to just go back to the Steam packet actually and talk about how much it costs to get things here. And it's an argument I wish I'd actually thought of whilst I was at the conference. Well, not an argument, but I suppose a challenge to it. Because Dan Clegg, the chair, mentioned the Calmac ferry deals up in the north of Scotland.
Hmm.
So that basically, for those that don't know, will know that I'm the biggest supporter of road haulage equivalency. And the Scottish government give a subsidy to the Scottish Islands, or they have an agreement, and it's £3 billion over 10 years, so £300 million a year. And obviously, Dan said, that's so much subsidy, etc., what have you. Now, my argument for this wouldn't be put in place if there wasn't a really valid return. You're not just going to give a subsidy and it's just going to be pissed up the wall. There has to be a good return in it. So I would actually really be curious to know, and I should have gone and got the figures, but I haven't had time yet to see actually how much their circular economy and the Scottish government earns back from that. Because obviously um, that deal that they've got with CalMac has encouraged millions more tourists into these islands that otherwise would be disconnected. It's a vital lifeline for businesses and agriculture. And actually, how much do the Scottish government get back in taxes from this whole circular economy? And I think it'd be a really interesting and strong debate to have to see what the payback is, because you're not going to put 3 billion into something if there's no payback. You're just not.
I think
So it'd be really curious to see.
there's an element. I think it's something we should probably discuss at a different time because I think there's a bit more of an element with that of the fact that they are so much further away than we are from England that without a massive subsidy, it's just never going to happen. And I
I
think
know, and I'm not
they have a
saying
responsibility which dates back in part to the UK government when it had Greater Service Scotland. They have a great responsibility to provide that sort of service because they have like residents. But I think we should definitely. I think the road equivalency thing we should definitely come back to on a different day. But we can
because we're
definitely
going to
come
run
back
out
to
of
that.
time this week.
Well,
Why don't we do a little road haulage equivalency special at some point and
that'd be fun.
we can have a full blown debate on it. But I'm going to move away from that for a minute.
Yeah.
And I want us to close this on drum roll, general election.
Oh God.
I know.
It is a year to go.
A year to go, guys. Sam Turton's going to be making his announcement ever so soon.
Yeah, so it's a year to go, and off the back of that, we are gonna start actually not with an interview that we've done or even that June done, but one that was done by Paul Moulton,
Whoa.
the silver-haired fox of Manx News, who is he interviewed Mitch Sorbet, who is the front of a new party, Isle of Man First, which has set out its manifesto of things it wants to do. Interestingly, amongst that was increasing tax threshold to £20,000, which I think, as a rough estimate, I think would cost about £30 million in the first year, based on the most recent tax figures I could find. So it's a bit. There's a lot in it where you're there going, "How are you going to pay for this?" Like,
I thought the exact same when I
uh,
saw frontline workers up their pay. I was like, are we paying for this now for a sec? As I
yeah,
love
it's
the
like
idea,
it doesn't.
but
We're getting world class health professionals as they're going. Have you got any idea how much like these guys are paid? Like, I
yeah,
looked at it and thought, fair due for optimism, but I just think, come on, you've got to be a bit more realistic here about some of the figures that are there. And
yeah,
I've noticed that a couple of existing political parties have pointed that out as well today now. So it'll be interesting how that develops over next year. In fact, I'll try and rip a bit of that from Paul's YouTube, and we'll put that out just a quick bit now. You can see the rest on Manx.news. We've got a link to that through for RMTV through Manx.news. We got a quick listen to Mitch now.
There's no one held accountable for any of the decisions that are made. And I think we need a massive paradigm shift on Ireland. If it doesn't work, 5 years' time, you vote the party out.
Well,
but if it does work,
yeah,
we're on a platform to a winner. Because if we don't do something now, my honest gut feel, Paul, I would give us 2 terms and we'll be tagged on to the northwest of England with an MP.
I mean, looking in the past, we haven't exactly embraced party politics here in the Isle of Man.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's been attempts, and there's been 2 or 3 members at one stage, but within, it seems within months it unravels almost. But to find those people who are going to stand by your core values and stick to it, how can you do that?
I think proper vetting initially. I think proper, very much proper vetting. But I think people now are tired. We're tired of poor services for more money. We're tired of businesses closing. We're tired of not getting on and off the island. We're tired of the cost that it's frustrating because this island has so much to offer.
So, Charlie, so like I say, we are just under a year away from 2026 general election. The doomsayers are coming out saying nothing will be achieved. Everyone else is saying there'll be a scramble to get legislation out the door and for ministers to try and leave themselves a legacy that they can stand in front of their voters and go, look what I did for our community. But I think we have to be realistic. What do you reckon now? Out of the 24, how many do you think will get re-elected? Let's put our votes down. Let's put our guesses down now, and we'll revise it in a few months again. But how many right now, the 24, do you think will get back in?
16.
You say 16. I say, I reckon definitely, maybe 12. I reckon we'll have a half new house because one of them's going to be president, so that takes one out
Yeah,
immediately, and I think there'll be a couple of retirements. So I think probably 12 will be back. I think there's probably at least 4 constituencies where the same 2 people get back in.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree with that. I would happily make a bet that I think we'll 100% see Jason and Tim return.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
I'm going to be an interesting one, but I could see Rob and
Yes.
Julie probably getting back in.
Yeah, I
I think
wouldn't be surprised.
Douglas Central probably. If both stand in Douglas North, probably again.
Mm.
Um, Glenfair and Peel will be a very interesting one. Depends on whether they both stand, but I think they could both get in again.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm curious. I'm curious on that one. That would be one of my ones where I could see a potential shift. I think we'll keep one, but I don't think we'll. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't keep another.
I
I would.
Russian. I think it will only be Dr. Hayward defending her seat. I think June Watson will be the president by then.
Yeah, I think we will probably see two new people down there.
Interesting who stands.
I'll be very, very interested who stands. But yeah, and I think Aaron Michael. I don't know if either of them are going to stand again.
I was told by somebody a bit more close to the know than I thought they were that Alf might stand again.
Really?
Yeah, I'll be very
I'd
intrigued.
see. I did not think there was a cat in hell's chance of him standing again. I
I
thought he was done.
It was put to me that, and again, I haven't had this conversation with him, but it was put to me by somebody relatively close to me. He gets a bit annoyed at chief ministers doing their term and then clearing off into the sunset, and then shouting from the far side of the hill about everything that's gone wrong. And I wondered whether that might see him possibly stand again. And I think, depending on results elsewhere, I could see a scenario where Alf Cannon's the next chief minister again. I could see him doing 10 years.
Do you think?
It depends on who's elected, but I could see a scenario developing where after the next election, Alf Cannon's still the chief minister.
I don't think he could be fucking asked.
I don't know. I think he's driven to try and improve things, accepts that things haven't gone the way they should this time.
Yeah.
And I think that there's an element of him that think if he had another 5 years, they could really turn things around a little bit and get things going. That's my hot take on the election for next year. That
Okay, that's a very hot take.
if Alf Cannon stands, he will be chief minister come this time, come October 2026.
Well, the pair of them, Tim and Alf, are going to have to get their seats back if they're
That's
both going to
because
stand
we
again.
are announcing it here today, Murray.
No, do you know what though? It's quite funny. I have thought about it. I won't sit here and say it hasn't crossed my mind because it has. I very much believe that I'm too young yet, and I kind of think that I could potentially be a bit too. I've always maintained that I only ever want to stand when I feel like ready and completely well-rounded, and that I have enough experience in a lot of sectors to be able to bring something to it.
Yeah.
And then I see who's already in,
Wow.
and I go, "What am I waiting for?" But equally, I think it is a pretty thankless job for as much as we do rip them. I think it's a completely thankless job, and you are constant headache. You know, we think, well, I think you and Juan are enough of a headache. If I then had the whole of the Isle of Man on my back, I would also be a bit like, I'd be telling everyone to fuck off left, right, and centre.
Yeah, fair play.
So,
well,
talking of, I want to end this on a little LinkedIn comment.
yeah. Because I've got one final thing I want to wrap up with, but go on, I'll let you go first.
I did a LinkedIn post last night.
Oh, God. Right, we'll put Charlie's LinkedIn post up on the screen to see what she's done compared to what she said last week. But I just wanted to end on a quick note of Nathan Harrison is out of hospital and back on the island after his crash at Donington. Got a shot. But yeah, it's good to see Nathan recovering well, and he is targeting a successful return to the TT next summer. So hopefully we will see the Onken man claim a good finish on the podium and maybe even a win. We could hear the Manx national anthem played for people who aren't the Crows. And if JP's listening, I don't care that it should be the British one.
And on that note, delighted to hear Nathan's on the mend, and it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.